How you going, guys? Oscar here. Today I want to make a video called "No Such Thing as Good or Bad." Now, what I mean by that is that, in essence, there is no good or bad. There just is. Now, we label things to be good or bad based on our experiences. So these concepts of good or bad, or even positive and negative, okay, are dualistic terminologies. Okay, dualistic meaning opposites. Okay, so they really define each other just like beauty and ugliness. Like for me to define something to be beautiful, I must have a comparison to what is ugly. For me to define something to be long, I must have a comparison to what is short. And same with high and low. So for us to come to an understanding, a concept, a mental concept to label something to be good, there must be a comparison to something that is bad. Now, what you perceive to be good might be completely different to what I perceive to be good, and what you perceive to be bad might be completely different to what I perceive to be bad. For example, if I'm sitting in a restaurant and I find the waitress to be rude and I label it as bad, okay, you might label it as, you know what, good. She's having a bad day, but I don't think she's being rude. So we are both frameworking reality based on our experiences. So one person's perspective, even though it might obviously be something that is negative, might framework it or you know justify it in their own minds to be an optimistic perception. Okay, instead of saying, you know what, no, she's downright rude. No, she's having a bad day. It's fine. So just by having these concepts, we start to trigger off different emotional responses. Now, positive, negative, same thing as good or bad. These are definitions. So if I'm sitting there going, okay, you know what, this is shit, this is bad, I've had a really bad day, or I find this person to be bad, or it's really negative. Obviously, these labels that I'm giving of negativity or bad is a comparison to something that I've experienced within my past that is good. So automatically, the subconscious mind will compare and associate experiences. Okay, so if I did not have a comparison, then I couldn't label something to be good or bad. I'd just be in the present moment. So, good or bad is really an emotional response based on memory. Now, as we're a child, okay, let's go back to when we're starting to get programmed now. When we're a baby, we don't know what good or bad is, do we? We really don't. We're fresh and we're pure awareness. And then as we're starting to grow up, we start to be programmed by our parents, whether it's a slap on the hand or, our mum or dad saying no and using a certain, voice command, a sound vibration, a tone, that triggers off fear or the flight or fight response, hormones in our body that say, okay, I don't like that feeling, or I'm not resonating with that feeling, it must be bad. Okay, so from a young age, we're starting to get embedded with our parents' programming, to the point where we start to associate positive and negative experiences due to certain tones and emotions that our parents are expressing. And then it gets to a point where our culture is doing this, our media, our environment, our society, other people. So we start to get programmed from all different aspects of life, and some people, they're aware of this, some people aren't. Okay, it gets to a point where, within, you know, the intricate makeup of our brains or our minds, we will get to a stage when we develop what I call a critical mind. So, a critical mind is basically once we start to have all these positive and negative experiences. Now, you've got to remember, like, there are different levels of obviously positive and negative experiences. Um, and, what I mean by that is, like certain neurotransmitters and hormones will make you feel good. They might be mood elevating, that elevates your mood. For example, when you're with a beautiful woman or you're with your partner, you might have hormones of, oxytocin or neurotransmitters such as dopamine serotonin, that pleasure, that stimulate pleasure centers that make you feel good. Okay, and then when you're having a bad experience, getting chased by a dog or someone's being abusive towards you, it might trigger off the flight or fight response. Your hormones give you a certain sensation that is not in harmony with the way your spirit wants to feel, for example, and you label to be bad. So we're labeling all these moments based on the way we feel. We're labeling all these moments and defining certain moments, experiences, even people, based on what we've been told, what we see, what you know we've been embedded by our parents. So there's all these different factors which you can understand. And it gets to a certain point that we don't even have to process information anymore. We have embedded this programming so strong that when we approach a situation or a certain restaurant and we see a certain food that made us sick, for example, we automatically know that's bad. I can't eat that. Just that automatic response, just by seeing something that's similar, that has a certain pattern. Now you've got to remember the brain, it processes electrical signals that come in the form of vibration, whether it be through sound, like I'm talking to you, it's sound vibration, or light, which is also vibration. But through your five senses, it's always vibration that's coming in. Okay, so the brain only knows pattern, it knows coding. So when it sees something familiar or a pattern or a code that's familiar, it's going to trigger off a certain response that has a similar pattern, like a memory. For example, I use the food restaurant. If I've eaten something in the past that's made me vomit, in the present moment, I go to a restaurant now, I see something that is very similar, that has the same pattern, the same smell, the same vibration, whether it be taste or smell, or it's coming in as vibration, then it's going to associate with that other memory, and I'm going to respond and react by saying no straight away without even tasting it. That's what automatic programming is in a nutshell. So, we can now use that for all situations, whether we meet new people that remind us of other people, whether we go to places that remind us of other places, whether we have certain perceptions that remind us of other perceptions. The brain is so intricate that once we start to embed certain things, whether it be conscious or unconscious, we start to have an automatic preconception. And that is the word I'm talking about here, is that preconception is just having expectations or defining something without it even happening. So sometimes we're left at a disadvantage because we're not letting the natural expression of the moment take place. We have already categorized, divided, discriminated, judged. We've already defined the moment and the experience before it happens due to our conditioning. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But remember, there is no good or bad. There's only the experience and the consequences of the experience. And that's what Newton's first law of relativity is. It basically means causality, that with every action, there's an equal reaction. Okay, cause and effect. Now, what that basically means, to break it down, is that, if I go out and I have an experience and my actions towards that experience, there's going to be equal reactions. Okay? For example, I drink wine, therefore I must pee, for example. So by understanding causality, we start to understand that, okay, action, reaction, intention, re-intention. Like everything has a balance. Now, when we go out there, in essence, there is no good or bad. And what that now means is that when there's an experience, and in that experience, no matter what happens, okay, on a deeper level, there is only pure awareness. When you start to peel layers of conditioning and you get to that core, and when I talk about the core, that spirit, we're truly observing. Like our spirit is just pure observation, pure awareness. It has no judgments, no discriminations, it has no divisions, it has no definitions. Okay, we're just experiencing a certain moment. Now, psychologically, there's a filtration. So, what I mean by conditioning and filtration is that my perception and your perception can be completely different. And like I explained before, it's done through, you know, um, our experiences. So, imagine spirit to be pure awareness, and then it's filtered. This awareness is coming out via attention, but this attention is going through these lenses, and these lenses are called your experiences. So, your experiences are filtering the perception of pure awareness through the psychological self called these lenses, okay, that I'm using for this example. So once the pure awareness is projected out through these lenses, called it past experiences, you start to define reality based on your conditioning, okay? So we already have all these concepts, definitions as explained. So once you take these or learn how to take these glasses off, you're in the present moment, you're in the now, and you'll truly understand that there is no right or wrong, there is no good or bad. And I mean, yeah, there are extreme examples of, terrible things that are obviously bad, and we use these words as a part of the human language, so it's easy for us to communicate and describe things. But in essence, the spirit does not know good or bad. Yes, you're going to get to a certain level of development when you just know in your heart not to harm others. You just know it. It's an intuitive understanding to live in oneness. But when people go out and do such horrific things, they are just at a very low vibrational level of understanding. Okay? Yes, we understand it to be bad, but on a deeper level, it isn't good, it isn't bad, it's just where they're at with their development. Okay? So next time someone does something bad to you or good to you, it just, an action. So I mean, yeah, you can. It is one of those topics where you can kind of debate it with me, but all I'm trying to express in this message is, if you truly think about the point I'm trying to make, is that we define good or bad from the lenses of past experiences. Now, in reality, in essence, in true nature, there is no good or bad. There just is. Okay, there's just the nature of the experience. Now, depending on whether we accept or resist is going to reflect our perception, and our perception has a direct influence on our biology, and our biology is either going to reflect positive emotions or positive neurohormones, or negative, and that's based on either you know um, neurotransmitters pleasuring or stimulating pleasure centers, or being under the flight or fight response. I mean, various different things in our physiology that are going to reflect good or bad moments. So it all comes down to different layers that are also experiencing, certain moments of reality that make a situation good or bad. There's all different factors involved, but the bottom line is pure awareness only knows experiences. Pure awareness, observation. There is no definitions, there is no concept, there just is. Acceptance, resistance, good, bad, right, wrong, positive, negative, comes from a mental concept, an understanding that is defined by past experiences, that there is a comparison. There cannot be good, there cannot be beauty without bad or ugliness. They define each other. It's very dualistic, it's psychological, it's man made. In essence, this does not exist. There's only the nature of the experience, and as the observer, we are plugged into that experiences. Yes, there are experiences and actions that resonate and that are in harmony with our spirit and our level of development, and there are experiences that are not in harmony. But the bottom line is, when you're here and you're navigating through this social experience, to be present, you just are. You just observe. Yeah, there are things that'll make you smile, that'll make you cry, but at the bottom, fundamental level, they are just experiences.